Thank you so much, DJ Steve. I hope you grabbed your shades as we start our Tour to Shared Vision 2021 conference. Welcome to the day. You all are here as part of a community of over 199 people. So one of you all needs to reach out to the friend who should be here at the conference and make sure they get in when they have a chance. We're really excited to have you all here today. Couple housekeeping items. If you're interested in asking questions of our speakers, either Tessa or Leona, as we get moving through the morning, please put them into the chat function, into Attendify, and we have folks who will monitor those questions, make sure we have some time to get those answered. Well, let's jump right in to our first speaker this morning. I want to introduce our President and CEO of Growing Inland Achievement, Dr. Carlos Ayala. He is a longtime educator, administrator, and former dean of the California State University Sonoma's College of Education, and of course now serves as our Chief Executive Officer. Thank you so much, Carlos, for being here. Take it away.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. I am Carlos Cuauhtemoc Ayala. I'm President and CEO of Growing Inland Achievement. Growing Inland Achievement is a collective impact organization working to achieve educational and economic equity in the Inland Empire. We do this by engaging and collaborating with all of you, the Inland Empire Educational Network. We connect diverse stakeholders to focus on student success. We research opportunities to support the network. We resource innovations and solutions to advance our educational transformational work. Our vision is that by 2035, San Bernardino and Riverside counties will be widely recognized for our well-educated workforce, thriving communities, and vibrant economy that create prosperity for all. We care deeply about the Inland Empire. We believe in this mission in this region and the potential of the people who live and work here. And we get excited about the opportunities ahead and prospect of what tomorrow holds. We are here today because we believe that a brighter future awaits. And yes, we have a tremendous body of work ahead of us. Let me share some quick facts about educational attainment here in the IE. The Inland Empire is a metropolitan statistical area larger than 1 million people. There are about 50 such areas in the United States, New York, LA, et cetera. Of all those 50 areas, the Inland Empire has the lowest post-secondary educational rate at 29%. Other notable areas include San Jose at 60%, Detroit 35%, New Orleans 37%, and Las Vegas 32%. We're nationally noteworthy. Another important fact that you should know is that we have an alarming 33% of our Latino adult population in the Inland Empire, our region's largest ethnic group, that does not have a high school degree. Think about that. That's 1 out of every 3 Latino adults living in the IE who haven't earned a high school credential. There's more, and I hope you take a moment to view the dashboards that are on our website, to view the disaggregated data, explore, and learn about what's going on around education in the region. But you need to ask yourself why. Why do we have this low educational rate here in the Inland Empire? And you can make a case for many factors, and I'm sure that you all have additional ones that you could provide, such as the inequitable structures of education that have disproportionately impacted Black and Latino, Indigenous, and people of color, or the lack of college-going social capital found in communities with generational poverty, or sparse philanthropic support and community-based organizations in the IE. Or the low percentage of high-paying jobs, pushing people to take 2 or more non-living wage jobs just to make ends meet. Or maybe the challenges of attainment presented by our vast geography and traffic, or that we're the forgotten help of LA, Orange, and San Diego counties. I would argue that these factors are all interconnected, each factor intertwined with the others, that leads to seemingly unsurmountable obstacles for obtaining a post-secondary degree or credential for 70% of the adults in the IE. And Just as I believe that interconnectivity explains the why, I know that interconnectivity points towards the solution. Connections across cities, counties, schools, colleges, universities, government, community organizations, and the workforce, working collectively, not against each other, aligned towards a shared vision, agreeing upon metrics and tactics is the pathway to achieving real regional transformation in education. 6 years ago, education and nonprofit leaders in the Inland Empire joined arms and said, we cannot overcome our educational challenges by working alone. We must work together. And GIA was born to help support and organize that collaboration. Today, that same belief holds true. Working collectively is the best way to make a difference for our students and the communities we live in. That is our regional hypothesis. GIA supports the region's work, your work, through collective impact. This approach asks us to bring stakeholders to get together, identify and prioritize challenges, create action plans, and center efforts on specific tactics until they're completed and evaluated. Then we can tackle the next challenge and so forth, and scale transformation across the region. The work relies on all of you, leaving your agendas at the door and approaching challenges with a regional mindset. I know that our vision is achievable. I see the successes in the network around elevating student voice, updating policies and procedures, removing success barriers for all students, and providing targeted support for underrepresented students. Every effort you make adds to the regional progress that leads to increased regional attainment and leads to that vibrant economy that creates prosperity for all. And it's working. Lagging indicators are moving. And now I'm going to do a tech challenge here. I am going to share my screen. So I'm going to look at 3 indicators. First, A through G completion. You'll notice that from 2016 to 2017, this indicator is moving forward. We are seeing an increase in students who are completing A through G. If we disaggregate that data by race and ethnicity, you can see that all students are making gains, but the equity gap remains. We look at another set of data. Sorry, made a switch here. If we look at community college transfer coursework completion in the first year, these are students who are finishing a college level math or English course the first year that they are in a community college. Okay, we'll try again here. Thank you for your patience. You can see that we see an increase in this transfer level coursework with time for both English and math. If we disaggregate it, I know this is hard to see. You can go to our website and see more about this, but you can see that the college level coursework completion is increasing for all students. But despite this progress, too few students are on track, particularly Black and Hispanic students. If we take a look at 4-year and 6-year graduation rates across our 2 big public universities, UCR and Cal State San Bernardino, you can see also increases. This lagging indicator is also increasing. And if we look at this broken down by ethnicity, you can see that the numbers are increasing as well, but the gaps remain. So our work is still ahead of us, but we're seeing progress on these really big targets. That's really, really important. Let me stop sharing here. I know transformation is achievable. It's one FAFSA application at a time, one change in district policy around dual enrollment, one subject matter department getting together and changing their curriculum to better support student success. We can change the region together. Over the next 2 days of this convening, you will learn more about our regional action network teams. These teams are excellent examples of the work of collective impact in action, where participants come together with a region-first mindset and establish a common agenda that's aligned with our shared vision. Furthermore, they develop and prioritize and implement tactical plans for immediate and long-term change, and many of those plans are underway. Immediately after my opening remarks, you'll hear from Roderick about the Inland Empire Black Student Success Collaborative, a wonderful example of an initiative that stemmed from the work taking place in the Equity Action Network team. Our role at GIA is to support the region's collective work and amplify your successes. And I'm very excited to report that GIA is strong and we're gaining momentum. Over the course of the last 9 months, GIA has become its own independent 501c3 organization. We launched our strategic plan that so many of you provided input on, and we're finalizing our business plan to lay the foundation for the organization for the next 5 years. We are expanding our board. We are fortunate to have an engaged and committed governing board, many of whom have been part of GIA since day one. And we wouldn't be here today without their guidance and support. And I'm delighted to officially announce that we've added some new faces. Michelle Decker, President and CEO of the Inland Empire Community Foundation, will be joining our board, as well as Dr. Diana Rodriguez, Chancellor of the San Bernardino Community College District. I look forward to their leadership with the rest of the board. A warm welcome to both of you, and thank you for your dedication and service. All of you will have a chance to engage with several of our GIA board members in our board member fireside chats this morning at 10:50. Don't miss that opportunity. We're also increasing the organizational capacity at GIA, adding 2 new employees to the team earlier this month as part of our Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation work. I'd like to introduce Michael Wagner, our new Director of Institutional Support. I guess if we were in person, he would stand up, right? He will be leading several of our projects focused on community colleges and brings with him expertise to support community colleges' math education. I understand the math departments in the colleges are excited about this. I am too. And I'd like to introduce Alejandra Gomez, our new coordinator for research and evaluation. She comes to us from the Harvard Data Project. She'll be joining our research team to support the use of data that is central to GIA's work. More data for the ants, more learning for the region, and spreading more knowledge about how to use data to guide the work. The GIA team, both the governing board and staff, is here to help you succeed and scale your transformation efforts. We are at your service. I am privileged to have a front row seat in the exciting collaborative work that takes place across the region. As I connect with your campuses and districts and listen to students, staff, faculty, teachers, and leaders, and find out about the amazing hard-won successes that all of you are having, I'm inspired. And this affirms my belief that transformation is achievable. For example, you will hear today about a dual enrollment policy table. We were able to bring in people from the K-12, the community colleges, people from across the state to have a discussion around dual enrollment, set some particular priorities and challenges, and begin to address dual enrollment. What if every student in the IE were able to take a college level course while they're in high school and have it be paid for? This is the kind of vision that we need to have in the region. Or another exciting example is that our board recently affirmed a 90% FAFSA completion goal for the region. This idea arose from our Financial Aid Action Network team, and our board affirmed it. We'll be working towards reaching that goal in the next few years, 5 years. And another example of the exciting collaborative work is that we're the only region in the state where all our community colleges are working with the National Center for Inquiry and Innovation on guided pathways implementation. We have the best technical assistants in the nation providing support to our 12 colleges of Region 9. That's amazing. We continue to scale our regional successes, and that's critical. And that's a critical reason why we're here today. It is inspiring to be a witness to the collection of all your work from early childhood to graduate degrees, P16. You too can witness this work today and tomorrow here. We have amazing breakout sessions planned on both days of this convening that will focus on issues affecting the entire region. As I mentioned, dual enrollment and in institutional enrollment capacity. These discussions are taking place today at 11:50. You will also find several sessions with tools and resources for support, such as College App, a career education roadmap, CalSOAP financial aid, Cradle to Career roadmap, math tools for students, and more. Please check the schedule for specific times on those breakout sessions led by many of you, our inspiring leaders in this network. And of course, we have outstanding keynote speakers to help us kick off this morning session and close out the convening tomorrow. Leona Christy, CEO at Catalyst Ed, will provide some inspiring words about equity and education transformation work. Tessa Carmen De Roy, president of the California College Guidance Initiative, will talk about state-level data systems. And Senator Connie Leyva of the California 20th State Senate District, she will have a conversation with Catalina Cifuentes, our own Catalina Cifuentes. I guess Connie's our own too, around college affordability and access for Inland Empire students. I look forward to these conversations. Finally, I want to leave you with 4 calls to action. First, I want you to think regionally and act regionally. During this conference, you'll learn more about the Action Network teams and how the participants in those teams exemplify this regional thinking and collective impact approach. Get involved with the Action Network teams. Spend some time getting to know the projects and initiatives taking place as a result of their tactical plans. This afternoon at 2:20 and 3:10, we have some sessions where you can take a deep dive and hopefully discover ways in which you can plug in. There's also some Ignite videos that will help you understand that work. Number 2, listen to and lift up the student voice. We'll be opening up our day tomorrow by hearing some of our Inland Empire students, an amazing opportunity to learn about their experiences, aspirations, hopes, and fears for the coming year. I know that it will be inspiring for all of us. We also have a workshop tomorrow at 11:20 that looks at an innovative student research project and how we can leverage what we learn to take action right away to improve student experiences. I hope that you could get a chance to check that out. So think regionally, elevate the student voice. 3, keep equity at the center of all the work that we do. We have a wonderful session planned tomorrow to take a look at the new equity continuum currently being developed by the network. I think of it as a equity formative assessment framework that can be used to help guide progress in equity. That's tomorrow at 10:20. Equity is about systematically removing student success barriers for all students and providing strategic support for our underrepresented students. Finally, number 4, lead with data. Keep a data-informed view on your work. Think about what are the leading indicators that you are tracking? Where do you track them? How do you share them? How do you talk about them? Can you identify other indicators that would be useful in the future? What are the long-term indicators that need more focus? And how do we connect all of this to the vibrant economy that we're all working for? You need to think about that logic model of how those things connect. So think regionally, elevate the student voice, keep equity at the top of your mind, and lead with data. I want to thank you for all the work that you are doing and for being here to be part of this convening. The way we will be able to achieve real transformation in our region is through a collective impact approach, and you are exemplifying that commitment. Please let us know how we can support you. Thank you. Anne-Marie, back to you.
Thank you so much, Carlos. Really appreciate your words this morning. In particular, talking about thinking and acting regionally. And so our next speaker comes to us from CalSOAP. His name is Roderick Figs. He is the associate director there, and he is going to share more about their work with the Inland Empire Black Student Success Collaborative. Thank you, Roderick, for being here.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Appreciate it. Hopefully Carlos will be back to send it back to you when I'm done, because I don't think I have that news anchor back to you, Anne-Marie. But Thank you for this opportunity this morning to share a little bit about the Inland Empire Black Student Success Collaborative. The Inland Empire, the IEBSSC, what we call it, I think it speaks directly to the work that is being done here in the region with GIA because it is a collaborative effort. We understand that a lot of the work is being done, but the collective impact stands to make much more of a difference when we're working together. So that's why it is collaborative in nature. At Cal State San Bernardino, in the Office of Pre-College Programs, it's a lot about opportunity, information. I've been working in pre-college programs at UCR and then Cal State San Bernardino. So my whole Southern California life has been based in the IE. So this region I know well, and I've been working in this area for a long time. So to be able to bring the two areas, I guess we always Riverside County, San Bernardino County, but to bring the IE together to have this collective impact on the Black students in our region stands to make a lot of growth in this area. Also being a part of the equity, and it speaks directly to what we're working on there and at Cal State's campus as well. With the IEBSSC, we work directly with community members, CBOs, community colleges, all the other universities have been invited out. We have representation from our four-year universities in the IE. So with that collective impact, we're trying to make sure that we address the achievement gap, understanding that it is not an ability gap, but the achievement gap is far too low for Black students in the area. So we understand the three-tiered approach that we're taking should address these concerns that we all know exist. It is the K-12, then it's the post-secondary, but then it's the postgraduate as well. And what does success mean to the Black students in the Black community in the IE? And how do we define that? And how do we help continue to provide opportunity for this community that we're serving? There's, Emery, I'm not sure if there's a way, but if anybody wants to get involved, definitely everyone is invited. It's not just educators, because we know in the community that it goes far beyond that. There's CBOs, there's beauticians, barbers, coaches. Everybody has to join in to make this work. So the collaborative, we meet monthly, the last Thursday of every month. You're invited to come out, bring your ears, bring your voice. We need both. The collaborative is for everyone, and we know that there's work to be done, and we're happy to do the work. We have some things going in the works right now with admissions, and I know we will be having an admissions application workshop with Cal State San Bernardino's admissions office on October the 14th. It is a part of their homecoming events, and we will have an application workshop for our Black students in the IE, and we have something special for them on that day too. So be on the lookout for more information there, and everyone is welcome to join. Like I said, bring your voice, bring an ear, and let's collaborate to get this work done. And I'm gonna give my best. Anne-Marie, back to you.
Thank you so much, Roderick. That was brilliant. We really appreciate all your hard work and the hard work of your team there. Yes, absolutely. You can have people join with you in your mission in Attendify. So on the homepage, there's the activity feed. Please feel free to share your email address in the activity feed, as well as if you want more information, feel free to reach out to GIA as well, and we'll make sure that that connection happens. Thank you for sharing all of the great work that you are doing and collaborating on. Next up, we have our speaker from Catalyst Ed. Her name is Leona Christy. Leona is the founder and CEO of Catalyst Ed, a national nonprofit that catalyzes equity, innovation, and improvement in education by creating networks that connect leaders and their teams to critical expertise, knowledge, and resources. In the process, it is democratizing access to expertise and opportunity, amplifying the impact of the sector's brightest talent, and redefining how organizations learn and build capacity. GIA is fortunate to work with the team at Catalyst Ed through our work with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation Innovation for Scales project. Leona is an immigrant to this country, and as an immigrant, she makes note that she had no access to networks of power or wealth and had to overcome several barriers as she sought to launch and grow the organization to its national presence. Her experiences have fueled her to drive to remove barriers to access, knowledge, and opportunity for all leaders. Leona, we are very pleased and excited to have you with us today. Thank you so much.
This is the first time I've managed to unmute myself at the right time. Thank you so much, Anne-Marie, Carlos, and the rest of the GIA team. I'm so inspired and excited by the work that you all do here. And it is a huge honor for me to be here with you. I would honestly have loved to be with everyone in person and connect with you and be inspired by your energy. And I sincerely hope that day will come soon. Through our work at Catalyst Ed, we speak to hundreds of education leaders every year about their aspirations and their challenges. And this last year, I got really interested in the question of what leadership looks like in a time of unprecedented uncertainty and disruption. So I started talking to people, and here are 3 things that I found. First, no leader at this point feels like they're acing it. The last 18 months have been so hard for all of us, and every single leader I've spoken to has felt exhausted, has been worried that they are failing their team and their work, and has agonized that they haven't done enough. And leaders of color in particular are hurting. 2, despite this, many leaders are showing up, and most are able to speak to moments when they've acted in ways that made them feel proud, when they led for equity. And 3, great leadership during a time of crisis doesn't look fundamentally different from great leadership at any other time. The principles are really the same, but it takes more from us as leaders to lean into those principles when times are hard. This is a little bit like the principles for leading a healthy life. I mean, we all know that we need to eat our veggies, exercise, sleep well, etc. And yet, while I have no problem, well, that's not true. While I have less of a problem following all of those principles when I'm relaxed and life is easy, I spent much of last year stress eating, not exercising, and waking up at 3 in the morning. Sometimes when I'm caught up in that cycle of being so stressed that I don't do the things that will help me feel less stressed, what I really need is a reminder. And in that same spirit, much of what I'm going to share with you will not come as a huge surprise to you. But my hope is that by sharing what I've learned, I might remind you that you all already know and have what it takes to be great leaders and leaders for equity. So the first principle, take care of your people. Now, I actually first heard this a long time ago, about 2 decades ago, when I worked for a large multinational corporation. It was an incredibly stressful job in a cutthroat, highly competitive organizational culture. We had multiple goals we were trying to make progress on, a ton of initiatives, so much data, we had no idea what to do with it. At some point, when I was really close to burning out, I went to the one person in the organization who seemed to have it all figured out. And I asked him how he kept his head, knew what to focus on, and how he more often than not got things right. And this is what he told me. He said, "It's simple, really. Just take care of your people." This last year, as leaders and educators, we have all been focused for good reason on our students, but the adults are hurting too. They're exhausted, anxious, fearful, grief-stricken. And this has had an impact on not just their health and well-being, but also their ability to show up for their students, families, and each other. The leaders that we spoke with recognized this. They took care of their people, not just because they needed the people to do the work, but because they saw taking care of their people as a part of their work. They created moments of joy and connection and gave people the space and time to rest and heal, and showed grace when people messed up. They recognized that some people might be having a harder time and might need more care. So where do you start? 2 things. First of all, fill your cup. It is hard to be patient and kind with others when you have run through your own reserves and are feeling empty. Every time I have found myself at the verge of snapping at someone who is clearly too exhausted to do their best, it is because there is a resentful little voice in my head that is saying, "But I'm exhausted too." So fill your cup and find the moments to pause and recenter and make your self-care visible and public. Second, check in with your team members. And by this, I mean a real check-in, not just a perfunctory weekly one where you run through task lists. Sometimes we as leaders are afraid to ask people how they're doing and what they need because we worry that we may not be able to give it to them. But what people want more than anything right now is to be seen and heard, to connect. And even just fully listening to others and being present for them is an act of radical caring. So the second principle, let your values ground and guide you. When everything around us is changing, it is all the more important to ground ourselves and our teams in what remains the same. And what remains the same are hopefully our values and our core commitments. This is something that the leaders we've spoken with have emphasized. When they didn't know what the next week or next month would look like, they articulated what the possible paths might be and then shared potential actions within each path, while drawing that through line from their values and commitments to those actions. As leaders talked about the importance of finding consistency amidst the uncertainty, I was reminded of something I've learned as a parent. When my daughter was born, I read all of the parenting books, like seriously, all of them. And pretty much all of them emphasized how important it was to be consistent because that creates a sense of safety for kids. At first, I thought that meant I had to ensure a really consistent and controlled environment. Let's just say that phase was a huge failure. Eventually, I realized that consistency was less about controlling the world and her. It was more about being consistent in my response to whatever the world or she threw my way. So how might you go about using your values to guide your actions? The first step is to get really clear about your values. If you talk about equity, what does it look like, sound like, feel like, act like in the context of your work? Why is it important to you personally? Invite your team and your partners and other stakeholders to join you as you do this. You'll find that as you and they gain this clarity, you will all start holding each other accountable to this value. Then start using that value to make decisions. Chances are this will be really hard at first. You'll find yourself deeply uncomfortable and might even feel that sense of loss as you let go of options that you might have otherwise preferred. But here's the thing. Each time you use that value to help you decide, you get clearer about what that value means to you. Each time a value tilts the scale in favor of one option, it becomes a little bit more of a part of your identity of who you are. And each time your team sees you use your values to make decisions, they feel better equipped to make those decisions without you. In this moment, it is also critical that all of us commit to being leaders for equity. In particular, leaders can start by being open and transparent about decisions and how they're made, ensuring that a true diversity of voices and perspectives are represented and heard during that decision-making process, and reflecting on any intended or unintended consequences for people from marginalized communities. Which brings me to the third principle, shared power. When things get hard, there is this temptation to hunker down, to centralize power. But paradoxically, when things are unpredictable, it is even more important to devolve authority. No single person can know the answer. In fact, there is no single right answer right now. And chances are our old answers no longer work in this new environment. And when divergences from plan are inevitable, there's only so much that we can do to ensure adherence. We have to become comfortable sharing power within our teams and also get comfortable sharing power with our other stakeholders, students, families, communities, and networks we work with. We have to open our doors and invite them in. Now, I'm going to use a lot of I language here. I'm a recovering controlaholic, and all of this was really hard for me at first. Some of this was a holdover of old habits. As a founder, I had one point done every single thing and was still used to stepping in and filling in any gaps, even when I didn't need to. Some of this was because of structural reasons. A lot of the information and context necessary to make good decisions was in my head, and I hadn't done a good enough job sharing it. And some of it was based in fear. I was worried that people would make wrong decisions. And honestly, some of it was my own need. As an immigrant and a woman of color, I had come to certainty and power very late in life, and I wasn't sure I was ready to give it up already. Ironically, I, who had always been suspicious of power in others, had kind of become addicted to it myself. Ultimately, what moved me was knowing that creating more equitable spaces and societies required all of us, and that included me and my team to share power. The start of our journey wasn't particularly easy. Shared decision-making requires building a shared consciousness, and that takes time. I had to over-communicate our values and rely on our team to do that as well. We had to share all the information and context rather than just spitting out the answer. We spent a lot of time in meetings, which was painful for everyone. I had to hold back myself from making the decisions, even when the path ahead seemed obvious to me and it looked like others were spinning their wheels. We were painfully slow. And we also had to build new norms to make sure that power didn't just get centralized somewhere else. But you know what? Once we got over that really rocky patch in the beginning, things have become so much easier. While we still have a long way to go, we're becoming better, we're becoming faster. We've started making more sounder decisions than when I was figuring it all out on my own. I've seen team members and our network members bloom and assume this sense of responsibility and gravitas that still astounds me. And as they've learned more, they've started sharing in not just the power, but also in the tensions that were earlier just my own. I'm sleeping way better now, y'all. So the fourth principle, balance the short term and the long term. So even as they triage to meet the immediate needs of their community, some of the leaders we spoke with are also thinking ahead of the future and exploring how they might reimagine a system that never worked for far too many students and families anyway. This is especially important with the influx of the federal stimulus funding, since it can guide resource allocation. And a subset of these leaders are actively engaging with their students, their families, with educators in envisioning a new equity-centered vision and key priorities. I like to think of this as the painkillers and vitamins principle. There was a time when I used to get headaches pretty often, and I needed to pop a painkiller to function. The painkiller addressed the immediate pain, but the reality is that I soon realized I also needed to make some more fundamental long-term changes to how I lived in order to reduce the likelihood of future pain. So here are some things that you can do. First of all, alleviate the biggest pain points for folks as soon as you can. When people are hurting, when they feel hopeless, it is hard for them to be generative. And if the pain cannot be alleviated, then at the very least, acknowledge it. Then carve out the time to do the long-term work needed. Otherwise, what is immediate will always take precedence over what is distant, right? Invite others to help you shape tomorrow with you. Listening tours can be really helpful strategies here for all. Ask other people what they think, and once again, fully listen. We as leaders think our most important job is to persuade others about the importance of what we do. But if we create space for others to tell us what they think is most important, we might actually gain new clarity about what we should focus on and what we might stop doing. Resources also always feel like a constraint when we're trying to balance short-term and long-term priorities. But we sometimes think of resources as being limited to financial resources. Think of the other forms of assets that you've built up, the relationships, the goodwill, the knowledge, the capabilities. How might you leverage these right now? If there was a time to break into the rainy day fund, it is now. So that brings me to my last principle, think and act collectively. And this is what you all are doing here today. Leo Tolstoy starts Anna Karenina with this great line, happy families are all alike. Every unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. We tend to believe this about ourselves and our teams as well. And as a result, we live in isolation. But here's the reality. We have all been feeling our way through the darkness during the last 18 months, and each of us has figured something out. We each have our own pieces of this larger jigsaw puzzle, and we now need to start fitting them together. Some of the leaders we've spoken with have recognized that while the task ahead is tremendous, they don't have to go it alone or reinvent the wheel. They've reached out to their peers, their partners, they've asked for help when they needed it, and they haven't held back if they had something that others needed. In a society which overvalues independence, they've worn their reliance on others as a badge of honor. Tapping into the expertise of others can help you and your team get exposed to new ideas and learn from others' mistakes. Offering your own can help you appreciate and value what you already have. More importantly, it can feed into a fundamental human need, the need to feel connected, to be part of something that is larger than ourselves. This is fundamentally different from networking as we think of it. It isn't about transactional in-the-moment connections, but rather about being a part of a web of interdependent, mutually reinforcing relationships. So where do you start? You start right now, right here. There is a wealth of wisdom and knowledge that is already there in this virtual room. Someone here has something that you need, and someone needs something that you can offer. Find every opportunity to find these folks. Ask yourself, who do you lean on and who leans on you? Ask yourself how you can increase your network of interdependence. Remember that you don't need to do everything. seek out ways in which you might add your voice, your resources, and your wisdom to a transformative collective effort. In order to create a more just world that works for more people, we have to embark on a process of collective imagining and creating. And that's why the work all of you are doing here today feels so exciting and so important to me. I want to thank you all again for inviting me to be a part of this community and for listening. And most importantly, I want to thank you all for being there, for yourself, for your teams, and for each other. There is this light at the end of this tunnel, and we are that light. Thank you. Anne-Marie, it's back to you. I hope I did this as well as Carlos and Roderick did.
Oh, Leona, thank you so very much for being with us today. That was exactly what we wanted and needed to hear this morning. I mean, the ideas of understanding where we've come from and how far that we can go, but only together. You know, I wonder if you could take just a moment to think about an example where you have seen this, I love the phrase, the web of interdependent relationships, this idea of the network, where you've seen that really be effective, especially given our current situation coming through the pandemic and with the crazy start of the new school year. If you might have something else you could share there.
Anne-Marie, I think we see a fair amount of this work play out in the post-secondary ecosystem that we have been working with and supporting over the last 2 years or so. I think initially, when many of these institutions and intermediaries started off on their work, there was this sense that they had to do it all, right? So everyone was trying to spread themselves as thin as possible so that they could offer the full range of services and supports to every single institution out there. And I think as we've had conversations within the group, we found that there is this greater willingness to appreciate that not everyone needs to do everything. And instead, there's space for partnerships, for sharing knowledge and tools so that people can collaboratively work together to meet specific needs that emerge as far as post-secondary institutions are concerned. We've also seen this in our provider network that works with K-12 organizations. Initially, again, everyone was trying to build these vast teams, and try and figure out everything. And it's really hard. I mean, resources are a constraint, managing large teams is a pain, and you can never do everything well, right? And so part of what we're seeing evolving there is where there might still be a central person who owns the relationship and manages the conversation with a K-12 school or district or nonprofit, but then they bring together this coalition of other organizations or entities or individuals who together can offer that full suite of services and supports and needs that organization or entity needs. It isn't always easy, but it is once you establish that initial set of rhythms and norms and trust more than anything else, it is actually way easier and way more effective than trying to do it all on your own.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Leona, for being with us today. We're very grateful for your time and your energy and sharing of your experiences and being so honest and open with us. I know that as a speaker that can't necessarily be as easy, but I am sure that we all will gain something because of your willingness to share with us. And we'll make sure to include in the activity chat the Catalyst Ed information. So if they have interest in understanding your network and what you all do, they can connect with you in the future time. So thank you again for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Anne-Marie.
And so with that, we are going to move to our next section of our opening this morning. We are very excited to have Tessa Carmen De Roy, the president of the California College Guidance Initiative, to join us today. She leads the CCGI's efforts to smooth the path for California students by systematizing college and career planning within K-12 school districts, while also providing educators across segments with the information they need to reduce equity gaps and facilitate student progress. Dr. De Roy received her educational doctorate from the University of California, Los Angeles, where she focused on data-supported regional efforts to articulate high school and college coursework. We're excited for her to share about how CCGI shares data across educational segments and aligns with regional and statewide efforts to advance student success. Before she begins, we have a short video to give a bit more information about CCGI. Lucas?
Back when I was a freshman, I never would have believed I'd have so many choices. School seemed like that conveyor belt at the grocery store checkout. And college? That never seemed like an option at all.
When I asked Javier what he wanted to do, he shrugged. But when I asked what he enjoyed doing, he really opened up. Javier didn't see how his interest connected to jobs, so I walked him through a career assessment on californiacolleges.edu.
My dad's a mechanic, and I've always loved seeing how things work. The career assessment came back with jobs I'd never even thought of: electrician, aircraft technician, even mechanical engineer.
Javier spent a lot of time on the career search tool researching what these jobs involved, what they paid, and what kind of education or training he'd need to get them.
They all needed more than just a high school diploma. To be a mechanical engineer, my best bet is a bachelor's degree, while an associate's degree could really help in becoming an aircraft technician. To be an electrician, I'd need to get certification.
Javier needed to find schools with specific programs, and he needed them to be affordable and close to home. The major search tool let him put in programs of study, then find colleges that offered them. He found 3 nearby. LA Trade Tech provides an electrician certification program. West LA College has an AS in aviation maintenance, and Cal State Northridge offers a BS in mechanical engineering.
All these schools require different things. If I wanted to be eligible for CSU, I'd have to meet A through G requirements. That meant passing a bunch of high school classes in different subjects, along with having the right GPA. I was already a junior, and I was worried I was way behind.
Calculating A through G eligibility by hand is confusing, but because the CSU and UC eligibility tools connect to Javier's actual transcript, figuring it out was a snap. I ran a report and found that Javier was just 2 units off track for CSU.
Miss Hill helped me find a summer English course to get caught up, and I was able to test out a Spanish too. I even used the academic planner to plot out all my senior year courses.
Javier applied to 3 schools. Since he used his californiacolleges.edu account to apply, I could track when each application was submitted.
The CSU application was the most intimidating because I had to enter all my A through G courses. What if I left something off or got a course name wrong? It turned out to be a breeze. californiacolleges.edu let me automatically import my A through G courses right from my account. It took 30 seconds, and it made sure I didn't make any mistakes that could hurt my eligibility.
Because californiacolleges.edu automatically passed along his transcript data with his CCC Apply applications, LA Trade Tech and West LA College had the information they needed to properly place him in first-year English and math.
Applying was one thing. Figuring out how to pay for college was something else.
When I ran the financial aid application report, I could see Javier hadn't submitted a FAFSA or California Dream Act application. I wanted him to know there was financial aid out there for him.
No one in my family had ever gone to college, so I had no idea how paying for it worked. Ms. Hill pointed me to the financial aid lessons, which took me step by step through how financial aid worked and how to apply. Turned out I was eligible for a whole bunch of free grants and work study too.
Javier launched his financial aid application through his californiacolleges.edu account. That let us both track when it was submitted and whether the school had sent his GPA.
March and April were like a dream come true. I got admitted to Northridge and got confirmation of my financial aid options at all 3 colleges.
There's nothing better than seeing a student succeed at something they thought was impossible. Javier ran into the office and pulled the acceptance and financial aid emails up on his phone. He said, "Can you believe I got into college?" I said, "Yes, I can."
4 years ago, I felt like I was on a conveyor belt. Like I didn't have any choices at all. Suddenly, I've got 3 amazing career options that I think I'd really love, and 3 great colleges to choose from. Now comes the hard part. deciding what I want my future to be. It's a tough choice, but it's a great one, because I'm the one who gets to make it.
Great. Thanks so much, Anne-Marie, and everyone for letting me join this morning. Let me see if I can bring up some slides. So that video is something that we recently put together to illustrate kind of the power of what happens when people systematically use the tools on californiacolleges.edu to help assist students in the process of both planning for and then transitioning to higher education. And I think that when, you know, the title of this particular section, the transformative power of student data, I think when people think about student data, they often think about research and analysis. But it turns out that actually lots of different constituencies have a need for different kinds of data. And so I'm going to spend just a few minutes talking about that. So the first constituency that we think about when we think about this work is students. And for students, really what they need first and foremost, and it's taking a lot of time, there we go, is clear information about pathways, right? What kinds of courses add up to what kinds of degrees and certificates. Sorry, I'm having full systems technology meltdown, so I can't actually see the presentation at the moment. Give me one more second, my apologies.
Tessa, I have your presentation up. Would you like me to share? And
that would be fantastic since we're having total systems meltdown over here. Yeah, I would love that. Thanks, Anne-Marie. Let me stop sharing and then I will present based on your screen.
There we go. I believe that's where you were at.
That is exactly where I was at. Thanks so much. So actually we can advance to the next slide. So those are the kinds of the data points that are important for students and families as they're navigating the transitions, right? And then for educators, part of what we really appreciate about the data that we're able to generate on californiacolleges.edu is that it's data points that are not readily available elsewhere, right? So if we know, for example, in the upper left-hand side, which of our seniors who have applied to a community college also have some form of career plan, or maybe more importantly, which ones don't, it's useful as an intervention, it's a support intervention, right? To say, okay, if you're going to be going to a community college, let's make sure that you actually know what career it is that you're interested in pursuing and what the pathway is that you'll be taking and how that's going to lead you to where you want to be. Similarly, in a very concrete and soon to start any minute now, in October 1st, there is data that tells you this student has started but not yet completed an application. And that's true of applications to the community colleges, the Cal States, or the UCs. And you can look at that data in the individual level or in the aggregate. And then also that important correlation, right? Did the students who actually submitted some form of college application also submit their financial aid? Because obviously, I think folks are well aware in this region, as you guys have your wonderful 90% FAFSA completion goal, that the best indicator, the best predictor of whether or not a student will follow through with enrollment is whether or not they've got the financial aid application submitted. And then for everyone, moving on to the next slide, for everyone, transcript data, right? So transcript data is an incredibly important and powerful set of information because it helps to support, obviously, in the four-year system, admissions. In the community colleges and in the CSU, transcript data is used to inform placement and first-year academic coursework. It's relevant to financial aid, both in terms of Cal Grant GPA calculation, but also in terms of when students are pulled for verification on their FAFSA. One of the key data points is whether or not they've graduated, right? Which is data that is often the colleges will request in the form of a transcript. And then there are some use cases that we're not even yet leveraging. So for example, when students who are non-resident show up and want to claim their AB 540 benefits that make them eligible, right, for in-state tuition, for example, we place the burden back on students. We say, okay, great, in a moment where they're being incredibly brave, we then say, we want you to give us a transcript. And if they don't have it on them, we say, okay, can you go back to your high school, get that transcript and bring it back to us. For the colleges that are receiving data from us, we can flag for all students without indicating residency status. These are students who have met the key criteria. They've completed 3 years of high school in California and graduated from a California high school. We could be using that, we're not currently, but we could, the data's there, be using that to help eliminate that step for students so that once they're brave enough to declare themselves, they don't actually have to be then doing additional steps to prove that they are eligible. If we could move on, that would be great. So who are we? Just as a brief recap, the next slide will show we manage californiacolleges.edu, which is the state's 6th through 12th grade college and career planning platform. It was established in 2000 by all the educational segments in the state. And we took over management in 2013. And since that time have really tacked on a significant data infrastructure that undergirds the platform. So students' transcript data can be in their individual personalized planning account, and then the data can be generating reports for educators, as well as being pushed to different higher education segments and to the Student Aid Commission to facilitate all of those key decisions that we just talked about: admissions, placement, guidance, and financial aid. On the next slide, it shows the kinds of sort of data issues and challenges that we help to solve. So one of the things several things, right, that probably many of the people on this webinar are familiar with. The challenges of data are that often the quality is not 100% accurate. And so part of the process of using data with students, it has to be right? It has to be correct. And so there's a whole team in CCGI that works with many of you districts in the Inland Empire and across the state to improve the quality of the data, first and foremost by ensuring that the A through G coursework that's listed in your student information system is actually cross-referenced with the source of truth database that admissions officers use, which is called the course management portal. So if a student's transcript indicates a course is A through G, but it doesn't turn out that it's identifiable in that source of truth database that the admissions officers use, then we're actually having students complete coursework that they're not getting credit for. And so a lot of our data cleanup work is related to ensuring that students are in fact getting credit for the courses that they've successfully completed. The data is uploaded. Timeliness is really important, right? It's super important in the context of making decisions and helping guide students' decision-making themselves. It's also super important, I think, and helpful when the data is fresher and more timely, both, for research purposes as well. And then because when students launch their applications from within California colleges, what we're actually doing is matching their account on California colleges to their account, for example, on CCC Apply. So there you get 100% hard match of identifiers across systems. So then you know that Anne-Marie has her SSID in the K-12 system, and this is what her CCC ID, her system-wide identifier, is in the community college system. And so we know for sure, not fuzzy match, whether the different data elements that we're trying to make sense of actually are properly associated to one student. And then finally, apples to apples comparisons. So when you have everybody using a common platform, then the reporting on the back end is reporting the same thing, right? And it's not open to interpretation. They either completed something that was logged on the technology, or they did not, be that a career assessment or the completion of an application. And so those are some of the ways that I think that the unique data set that we bring to the table is helpful to all different stakeholders in the process. Yeah, let's go ahead and move forward. So on a regional basis, you guys were early adopters. There have been a lot of you, which we'll talk about in just a minute, they're already participating. These tools are helpful because they bring an equitable baseline, right? So if we can make sure that the information that students need is provided to all students in all classrooms within a district in a comparable way, right? This is a sort of it sets a nice foundation. I think for equity purposes, we have to obviously work and provide more resources to the students who need them most. But as a sort of universal baseline, this is a helpful starting point. The tools are free and sustainable. And it also supports the ability for all educators to be sort of running, doing the sort of data-informed practice that I think JIA is so focused on, in terms of using data to identify where do we need to intervene. And given counselor caseloads and educator, just sort of the amount of work that y'all have in especially this moment in time, having that virtual ability to tap into a data set and say, okay, who do we need to intervene with is incredibly important and useful. And then again, the apples to comparison helpful at a regional level so that we're not trying to derive the same information from different data sets for different districts. And then you guys were, in 2019, we launched, many of you familiar with College Next California in the Inland Empire, which is really just a fully subsidized approach. That was done collectively with Growing Inland Achievement and your 2 county offices of education, as well as with the CSU Chancellor's Office. And it's been a really helpful pilot. A lot of the work that we do has been sort of early adoption and testing has happened in the Inland Empire environment, which has been really great. And on the next slide, it'll show you our presence in the region. So Riverside actually started well before 2019, which is why there's such good saturation. And since they started in like 2014. So it's taken a good long time to get pretty much full saturation in the Riverside, in Riverside County. And I know that we are working closely with you guys in San Bernardino, increasing these numbers since 2019. And I know that the county offices are both getting data about what's happening across districts, right? So we can aggregate that data up to the county office level. At a statewide level, there are similar kinds of benefits. So some of you may be familiar that in 2019, there was legislation passed establishing the need for a cradle-to-career data system in education for California. And unlike most states where that has historically been something that's almost entirely for analytical purposes, the data system in California from the beginning was intended to serve both analytical purposes by creating dashboards that the public can access and query tools for people who are more, data wonks that want to get into the tools themselves and generate their own queries, as well as much more in-depth data requests. But it always had in mind that data should actually be used in service of students and families and educators in real time. So that is where we come in. The system, we can move to the next slide. Once the initial legislation was passed, there was an 18-month planning process that involved 16 state agencies and 2 advisory boards, one that was focused on sort of policy and one that was made up more of practitioners. And there were over 200 participants in those different planning bodies who then collectively generated a set of recommendations that were just in July codified into statute. So there is now the California Cradle-to-Career Data System, which will be housed at government operations. And as part of that work, our work is being scaled to all 6th through 12th grade students. So the next slide will tell you a bit about what that looks like. So what that means regionally is that rather than the subsidy in the Inland Empire sunsetting at some point, it is now part of the statewide system. So the services will remain free moving forward. And then we will be over the next several years scaling up to reach all districts in the state. New subsidies in other regions of the state or to districts that are currently paid partners, because there are a group of those, will kick in for the 22-23 school year. And in the materials for the convening, there's a flyer that links to information sessions for any districts that might be on who are interested in learning more about how to get a spot in the subsidized partnerships. And then on the next slide, so part of what we're finding as we start to grow in regions is that it's nice to have a consistent infrastructure because it maintains continuity. So if I'm a student that moves from Chafee to Corona Norco, my account can move with me. And same for educators, because anytime you introduce new technology into, you all know this, into an environment, it's a huge investment of time and energy. And so having a sustainable system that we know is reliable over the longer term is worth investing in. Maybe not so much if we think something's going to go away. So one of the things that we're super excited about is this opportunity to have continuity for both students and staff as people move from place to place. And then this consistent baseline for all students in the state of California of college, career, and financial aid guidance. And then the ability to bring efficiency to the system, right? So not only do students get credit and not kind of fall into these traps of not having their coursework recognized at the point of application, but they're also able to move their data, as was demonstrated in the video, sort of 30 seconds, in comes your coursework to the application, and we eliminate a lot of the possibilities for inaccuracies and sort of user error, right? So I know I'm not particularly good at data entry, and I know that my teenage kids are definitely not very good at data entry. So it eliminates a lot of the heartache and the complexity of the process. And then finally, from a policy perspective, I think we all have had experiences where there's policies that are passed that are excellent policy, that have a focus on student success, that are intended to really transform the way that students experience education. But if you don't have the infrastructure in place, it's hard to implement. So I think AB 705, multiple measures placement in the community college system, is a good example of a policy that was designed to really improve student success, but where it was contingent in some ways on the opportunity to get high school transcript data for all students. And that infrastructure just wasn't in place when it was passed. So this sort of brings up the rear, right? Makes it possible for there to be a universal place to tap into high school transcript data for all the purposes, not just for placement, but again, for financial aid verification, for guidance holistically, which we hear from advisors in higher ed all the time about the utility of high school transcripts to help inform their guidance practices. And then, as you're probably aware, 22-23, we now have statute that says that all K-12 districts will be certifying that their seniors have filled out their FAFSA or their California DREAM Act application prior to graduation, which is, again, an excellent goal and hard to implement. And so one of the things that we're super excited about that was briefly noted in the video is the new financial aid lessons on California colleges, which really scaffolds the process of students not just understanding what is financial aid and why would you apply for financial aid, and that you, yes, individually are probably eligible for financial aid, but also how to do that, right? That actually step-by-step walks them through the process of determining, do I launch my FAFSA or do I launch my California DREAM Act, and then doing those things, gathering all the proper documentation and having everything ready to go to try and, again, smooth out that experience. So those are the things. And I think that as we move on and things get scaled up, I think there will be more and more opportunities to leverage the infrastructure for the kinds of student success focused policies that I think we're all in support of, to try and close equity gaps and ensure that all students actually have meaningful access to post-secondary. And with that, I'm happy to take questions or turn it back over. And my apologies again for the technical meltdown.
Thank you so much, Tessa. No problem. We understand technical difficulties. All of us have had them one way or another. It's not an issue. I don't know if anyone had any particular questions, if you wanted to put them in the chat. Otherwise, one question I just quickly had, Tessa, for you was trying to understand from a community perspective how to engage with CCGI. I know there's options for parents to log in, but I wonder if you could talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. So parents obviously are an incredibly important constituency. And there is an option on California colleges for parents to create an account and to link their account to their children. And their children might be multiple students in different grade levels in different schools. But there's also content that's specific to parents to sort of what is it most important for you to know as a parent, because there's a lot of information on the website and a lot of lesson plans that, you know, probably parents don't need to go through the whole thing. And so my team is endlessly working to try and refine that content, but we would, you know, for anybody who wants to get more information, I would suggest sending an email to support@californiacolleges.edu, and the team can help walk you through what you need to do.
Makes sense. And then one quick question that did come through was around students' data and wondering how it gets updated within the system.
Great, excellent question. So there's some variation in the frequency. It's really dependent on each individual school district. We will be moving under this new legislation towards, there's an associated modernization of the CalPADS system. And once CalPADS is fully updated, there will be an integration between CalPADS and California colleges, but that's in the future. That's a couple of years out probably before that's functional. So in the meantime, my team works district by district with the student information system managers, and some districts have automated this file upload and it happens nightly. For some districts, minimally, we really urge people to have data once a month updated, because what we find is that counselors, if there isn't alignment between the student information system and what they're seeing on californiacolleges.edu, there is concern, right, and rightfully so, to use the data to support these important interventions. And so my team will nudge people and let them know that it's time for an upload when that hasn't happened. But as of yesterday, what I saw, we have 108 districts right now working with us, and over 100 of them have current files within the last 30 days. So typically it takes some time, but once it's up and running, it's a fairly seamless process.
Great. Thank you, Tessa, so much. We really, really appreciate your time this morning and sharing with us all of the information regarding not only CCGI, but how it integrates with the new statewide data system. From GIA's perspective and many of our partners, we're very much looking forward to the opportunity to understand better our own regional data to ensure that we're helping to support our students the best ways that we can. So thank you once again for being with us today. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And with that, we're about ready to move into our sessions for the day. Couple housekeeping items I want to make sure you all are aware of. We do have the activity stream, which is on the front page of Attendify. That activity stream allows you to post items, pose questions, and then also you can use the function to reach out to individuals who are participating in the conference as you start to network with each other. Also really excited about our session lineup. First up after a break is our board fireside chats, where we will be able to learn more about their individual leadership styles regarding regionalism and network collaboration. As well as later on, we will get to have lunch with DJ Steve, which I don't know about you, but enjoying some time and tunes while you enjoy your lunch is always good, a good break for middle of the day. And then right after that, we have the session titled Brighter Ideas, Brighter Futures, and that will allow us to network with each other, right? So bring your ideas that you can share with a smaller group of individuals. What are areas that you want to think about or work on together? And then of course, later today, we have our ANT Ignite sessions and breakouts. So learning more about our Action Network teams and how you can continue to be engaged in regional activity and get the support and participate in this web of interdependent relationships that Leona spoke about earlier. I would like to take just a moment to thank all of our presenters this morning. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and ideas and your passions about our students here in the region. And before I leave you to DJ Steve, I do want to reiterate our 4 calls to action that Carlos highlighted this morning. Of course, first, thinking regionally and also acting regionally. Listening to and uplifting the student voice. Third, keeping equity at the center of all the work that we do, and leading with data. So we will continue to look at these points throughout the 2 days of the convening. Thank you all so much for being with us for the next 2 days. Always reach out to us with any questions. And with that, I'm turning it over to DJ Steve. Thank you so much.